This was back off the 2015 budget.
Yeah.
This is how long ago this came in.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
You know, when this issue came about, you know, we were at the tail end of the year, and Angie was here, and we talked about it, and we were gonna we used most of the money that it was allocated for ditch drainage account. We had like $7,000 in there. We didn't use a whole lot that year. And I said, well, you know, it came up 9,000, and we said, well, we're gonna use this money because at the end of the year, we're not gonna use it, it's just gonna go back to the general fund. That was my input to that conversation. From that point on, that's when we said, you know, well, we need to get it done because it was holding up the contractor there. So that was the thing, you know, the money was already allocated for drainage, you know. I could have gone, and spent $2,000 here and $2,000 there, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I think and I don't want to speak for the council, I just think what they're saying is policy is policy and needs to be followed.
Oh, I know, you know, I agree with that, you know, you have to follow policy, but sometimes in emergencies, you know, come up that you really don't have
And
a
I
choice.
understand, and that's what it comes down to, was this an emergency or was this an emergency just for LGI?
It was a big inconvenience for them, I'm sure.
That's true, and if we can be good partners with them, and because they're doing a lot of construction out there, and we're gonna benefit greatly off of it, but do we break city policy to do it?
Well, no, we don't break city policy to do it because it shows us as we can, we want to be a good partner with them, but we want to stand behind our word as well.
And it doesn't take that long to get it approved, I promise
It
you.
doesn't. I mean, yeah.
So,
We
anything,
have policies there.
anything else, Mr. Hernandez?
No, I just wanted to address that part so that we can continue going forward from here.
For a
And
clear understanding.
Clear understanding.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Day, do you have anything additional?
Yes,
Ms. Scott?
No, sir.
Mr. Wood?
Are we sure on all these prices are accurate?
I didn't deal with them directly, Ms. Stowe did. Are you talking, when you're talking about prices, you're talking about what they charge for the?
They charge us for their labor, it looks like, right?
Mhm.
So from September 18th of last year until March of this year, we didn't hear anything from them. That's the two emails that are in here.
Right, that's how long it took them to complete it.
It took them that long to dig it out? Or they just talking about all the invoices?
Well, maybe just that, yeah, then that, well, because, that's right, because, Mead invoiced LGI, and then LGI paid them, upfront for the cost, and then LGI turned around and had to invoice us. And so, any
So,
lag time would have been,
what you're saying is it wasn't LGI was using the subcontractor that was,
right,
and
on the site.
LGI paid the subcontractor, then there was a lag time with them.
Right, because they originally tried to submit it, using Mead's invoice to us, but they wanted us to write the check to LGI, and we can't do that. Because we need to get the invoice correctly, so that took them a little bit of time.
that's LGI.
So, your question is the pricing correct?
Just wondering, because when it says here mobilization charges do not assess on this work with the contractors already on site, so that aided in keeping the invoices lower. So what was we talking about there?
I guess what they're saying is that they already had their large equipment there to dig it out. If we would have went to secondary bidder or third bidder on this, they would have had to include the cost of the transportation of bringing the large equipment in to dig it out.
Okay, Mayor?
Yes.
But on this, Meeks Group, which did the work, they charge LGI $86.40, but LGI is turning around and charging us $12,740. Where's the difference?
We don't have a true invoice from LGI. I see it.
Because
All I have is an email saying, hey, this is what it's gonna
Well,
cost.
there's the other one in there.
And it doesn't add up to the
Barbara's all in
12,000.
here. Well, I mean, the actual, where they didn't itemize it out on this one.
so you're looking almost
No,
$41,000
I've got
difference.
one, I've seen it, and they do itemize out the cost, and that is the correct cost. That's why they went out and did all these pictures, because I asked them to research it, because there was such a difference in the original quote of the Curlex. They were estimating it to be $28.80, and it came back at the whatever it was, $8,600. So I asked them to do the research on that. And that's why they went out and made these diagrams and took
Well,
pictures.
is this meat invoice here, is it just for the curless
Yes.
only? That wasn't for the actual labor of digging it out, or
No,
the
No, that's-
actual,
right.
the equipment or anything, it was just, this is just for the curless itself, the meat invoice. If you add their labor into it, that would probably make up the difference, don't you think?
It would be on them.
I have it. I didn't realize
Because
the itemized.
even the email here says, we have process cleanup in the Clark City-owned drainage facility that we discussed. That is the outfall for new drainage system that we are currently constructing, that the works will involve flowing estimate costs. Please note that the costs will be based on time and material and could be either more or less. The excavation of this distribution of silt and debris, $61.20, and the installation of Curlex is $28.80. So how did they go from $28.80 to $86.40 for,
I think they all drastically underestimated how much curless they
Yeah,
were
they
gonna need.
did. That's why they went out and took all the pictures.
almost
That's what-
$6,000?
Yes, and that's why I questioned it. That's why I had to go out, that's where this document came from, is because I
I
asked
agree,
them.
that's, he's not very good at estimating. If he's that far off, he's not very good at estimating.
But then, at that point in time, when you seen that much of a difference, why wouldn't you have brought it to the council?
Or stop.
This is the most recent, when I did question that invoice.
Or stopped it altogether? I mean, because,
Well, they weren't giving us updates on, we're doing it, they weren't giving us play-by-play, they just went forward with the project.
So, when they saw it was gonna run over the 2,800 in Curlex, they just went in and spent the money
Right,
without even calling you and asking you, okay?
exactly.
Wow.
They had a change in engineers, who's the project manager, and when I brought that to his attention, I actually had to forward my email to him and say that this, because I got, the first quote was from Ken, and the final was from Dustin.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting there looking at these pictures, and it looked like they did, I mean, I'm no expert in this, I think Weston knows more about it than I do, but it looked like they did a great job. But I just know if I was working on my pickup, and the mechanic said it was gonna cost me $1,500, and then he found that it's on a rod to the block, and he was gonna cost me $9,000, I think he'd call me and let me know before he fixed it.
but that's almost a $5,000 difference. I mean, it's probably a little more than 5,000 actually. And just oh, well, no big deal. And not from you, I'm not saying no big deal from you, I'm saying
No big deal.
from his estimate, from 2880 to 8640, if that's the way the mayor is reading it, and installed 6,400 square yards of Curlex. And you're saying that's what he's charging us, $8,640, but his original quote was $2,880.
I know.
That's almost $5,000 difference, and how can you just say, oh,
But his original quote doesn't have the amount of permits, it just was what he thought it was gonna take. And I think on this one email, it doesn't say the amount, it doesn't say over here, it says 6,400 yards. He may have been estimating 2,400 over here.
and then,
But I do agree that I think if it's gonna run over a few hundred is one thing, but several thousand, he should have called Ms. Stowe and said, look, you know, we drastically underestimated this. What do you want us to do? Then she could have took appropriate action, but if they didn't call her and they just did it, that's not her fault, that's their fault for not being. But, you know, once again, you got a subcontractor doing it for LGI, and they probably just, LGI said fix it, and that's all they knew. The whole thing? Or just the part
The part
they,
that
they
we didn't
left?
agree to, the part that we didn't agree to. I mean, it's just not right to say, you know, you give us a bid and then it's several thousand more without, and just blindside us like that. We're on a budget for a reason.
But we could go to them and say, look, this is what y'all quoted us, this is invoice that y'all gave us from the beginning. Y'all didn't come to us, now we'll pay the difference. Y'all come to us with another different invoice and explain why it was that much of an increase. But.
And why didn't you tell us before
Yeah.
you did that there was that much of an increase?
But just to come out and say, well, it was their mistake, no problem, pay it.
We don't even pay for their mistakes like that, without some justification. They need to justify.
So what,
The justification is that we should have been maintaining this channel all these years, and it was overgrown, unfortunately. And so, since their equipment was already out there, that's the material that it took to get it back to where it should have been. If you calculate up the amount of years that it's been neglected, you probably would have spent this much money and effort into doing it all along. It was a big chunk now because it hasn't been maintained like it should have been.
but we could say that about a bunch of stuff.
oh yeah.
That's true, and we may run into it again in the future as things develop around here. We may find other things, and it could very well happen again.
Caesar, since you've been here, until this came up, did you know that this belonged to us and needed to be cleaned up?
No. That was first, I learned when, we had that problem.
So,
But I didn't even know what they were talking about when they said we want to tie in the storm sewer here, but we can't because this thing's got, 8 foot of water in it, so.
For sure it's in the city limits.
Yes.
Well, here's my thing is that I don't have an invoice. It's hard to say yes on it because I don't have an invoice
to
to
compare,
look at. And the last thing, that we have, that we can see on here, is him saying our visit this morning verified the 6,400 square yard invoice from Mead at $86.40. And so that's all I have right there to say this is what the cost is. And then we've got the invoice in here from Mead saying $86.40 that they wanted us to pay to LGI.
Okay.
So it's hard to say yes on this when we have a whole lot lower amount.
I'll put that right in here. Give me just a second.
so going forward, Caesar, while she's pulling that up, are we gonna be able to maintain that clean out, or we're going to have it hired out done because we don't have it right now?
Yeah, we don't have equipment that big to get it. We tried to do something with our excavator, but this thing is almost like trying to deal with the spoon, it's a big ditch. You have to have a big equipment in there to get the bottom of that drainage, channel cleaned up.
So,
Very small.
what would you say, every 3 years, did it need to be cleaned out?
Yeah, I guess, well, you know, your guess is good as mine. I said 3 years, you know, we can probably put something in there in the budget, you know, it's one of those special,
I mean, you know, I know y'all cleaned out underneath the covers going underneath
well,
67.
you know, we cleaned that,
Then you rent a Bobcat or something?
yes, but, you know, that's a small, this thing is a 72-inch, culverts in there, so you can get a Bobcat. This thing over there used to go down in there, you have to literally, I mean, it's a big ditch, you know, it's a good size ditch.
What was it take,
I won't say a big track hole, or, you know, big excavator, same hundred, you know, almost or
Here's
something.
an invoice from Jackson for the $4,100, which if you add it to the 86, 40 equals.
is there any way you can email that to the chief and then print it off for us?
Sure.
Yeah, it gives an hourly price, but it didn't say how many hours they spent, it just gives you an amount at the end of it.
It's not very detailed invoice either.
Mhm. It's the Jackson, it's labeled, there's 3, it's Jackson. And here, print out the Mead one too, would you please?
See if we have Wi-Fi in here when we get the tablets. Just email it to us and it was, right?
Next month.
What?
On it, they arrived today.
Next month.
You have tablets.
Oh.
You have iPads.